right, so it'd be a really short show if we talked about all the things that Blair Underwood is not involved in. So instead, we've got 2 spectacular hours to talk about what Blair Underwood is involved in. Blair Underwood.
Thank you, sir.
Either one, it's up to you.
All right. Water over there. Brought my own drink. Hello. So funny. What an exciting night. Did you guys hear Obama clinched the nomination? I'm sitting at home. I've become a CNN junkie. Just because I'm sitting at home thinking, nobody's going to come tonight. It's such an historical night. Obama clinched the nomination. So thank you for coming tonight.
I don't think you're really a junkie yet until you watch C-SPAN. That's for the real junkies.
Yeah,
people
I'm not
who
there
just
yet.
like have no other life. They're like, oh, there's policy. I just came.
What's up? I'm sorry.
That's all right, please. For the camera, who did we just introduce ourselves?
This is the great Niecy Nash, ladies and gentlemen. We did a show together called City of Angels a while ago. And every time she'd come in and do an episode, she would just steal the show and she cracks me up. Every time I look at you out of love and I start laughing, she always says, "Why are you laughing at me?" I said, "No, babe, I'm smiling out loud. I'm not laughing at you." She's good people.
I've just come from the Blair Underwood Admiration Society in Encino, where Alan Rosenberg and Connie Stevens and Anne-Marie Johnson, Lee French, I don't know if you know Lee French, everybody had glowing things to say about you, about how fantastic you are as an actor, what a great person you are, how smart you are, blah, 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 blah. They went on and on and on. So we'll touch on some of that later on. Where to start?
I don't know, man. I'm here to answer your question.
No, where do you
where do you want to start?
Where did it start for you?
Oh, wow. So
you moved around a lot, first of all, as a kid.
I have. We're all SAG members, union members? Yes. Love it. Let's not go on strike unless we have to. We might have to. So we'll talk about that later. Where did it start? I am an Army brat, and my brother Frank, who's here, by the way, we grew up in a military family. Frank, say hello. You know you want to stand up. But our dad was in the Army for 27 years, and we moved around a lot. I really think because of that lifetime experience, it made me want to become an actor, because we were always, the new kid on the block, the new kid in school, new kid in church, and for me, it helped me kind of figure out who I was. And what I found was, with that kind of nomadic lifestyle, you either lose yourself or you find yourself. And what it did was it made us a very close-knit family. Frank's my older brother, as you can tell. He looks much older. And and we have 2 younger sisters. And it made us a very close-knit unit to this day, which is great. But go ahead.
No, please.
No, it's just just
much more about you.
In terms of that lifestyle and wanting to, number one, act and realizing I can make money at it, and I could go to college, because that was not an option in our household. We would be going to college one way or another. And I remember talking to my mother saying, well, okay, I know I want to act because it seems like fun. It seems like you can make some money at it. Seems like there's some nice perks to the business. And then when I realized you could actually go to college and learn that and major in that, that's when I knew that's what I wanted to do.
I had a thought while you were saying that. Did you see, I'm sure you see lots of families and they come and go, and did you see families that didn't do as well? You were saying that you became close-knit. You said that some people find themselves, come together and find themselves, other people kind of get lost.
Well, you lose yourself, because what happens, you kind of start to assimilate into every situation. We lived in Stuttgart, Germany. I was literally too young at that. I was 3 at the time.
Isn't German a pain in the ass?
Well, I was too young to remember.
Oh, yeah,
I remember.
I could, yeah, it's a tough one.
You live there?
No, I've been there and I had a tough time with it. I thought we could share that.
Okay, all right. Can't quite share that one. So what happens is, sometimes in trying to assimilate too much, or trying to learn the rhythms of a certain neighborhood or culture, you lose yourself. And for me specifically, how it helped me, and it's interesting now, kind of looking back at, thank God, 23 years in this industry, we lived in a community, where were we, in Michigan, Warren, Michigan, that was an all-white community. I was the only brother in the school for 2 years, the only one for 2 years of my life. Frank was the only one in the high school. I was in junior high school. My sister was the only African-American I think we were Negro at the time, or black at the time, but the only African American in the elementary school. So it was a very interesting thing because I look back now and I know, if I analyze it, how much it has informed so many of my decisions to this day. Because a lot of my friends, again, we were 16, 17 years old, so, you know, adolescence and your first time doing everything was with friends of mine who were Caucasian or white. But what it did also was I got a chance to see how they saw me or my culture and knew very little about it. Because again, we were in Warren, Michigan, 12 miles outside of Detroit. What they knew about black people or what they saw on the evening news, or at that time the Jeffersons or Good Times. So I would hear that, and there were some parents I couldn't go over to their house because they wouldn't allow me over to the house, but I can't tell you how many times most of my friends, I could see their eyes open, and they would say to me, man, you're nothing like I thought black people were like. I'm like, dog, what did you, one dog them said, man, what did you think? What did you think? It was very interesting. I mean, that's who I am, so I lived that, so it wasn't a surprise to me, but it was an eye-opener to me to see their perception and what they thought they knew about me and my culture. So it has truly informed every choice and decision I make as an actor to this day. So that was kind of a long answer to the question.
Do you ever think to yourself that I am educating people? You obviously have a much broader pulpit now. And not to say that you're preaching, but I mean, do you ever think to yourself, you know, people are going to learn from this?
I think about it all the time. I don't think, and again, you know what's funny? And you said somebody said backstage, just kind of, you know, it's not going to be aired and say what you want to, but it's because I'm talking to actors and I'm talking about building careers, and we'll talk about the work too. But also, I learned very early on that as a black actor, because sometimes there are sometimes, not all the time, but there are times when there are differences as an actor who happens to be black in the choices you make. And again, because I knew how important the power of the images, and what we do is we create images, as we know. It's one thing if you're on stage, which is powerful in and of itself for the people in that room, but if you have the opportunity to create images that go on celluloid or on the internet and cell phones nowadays, but just go out across the world, those images last forever. Yeah. So there's a responsibility to that, especially I feel like an old man when I came along back in the olden days. But even back in the 80s and 90s, I often think of a story. I did a film called Just Cause, 1994, with, that was Niecy. But it was with Sean Connery and Ed Harris and Kate Capshaw, Lawrence Fishburne. It was a phenomenal cast. Now, mind you, this was 7 years after doing L.A. Law. I literally auditioned for that part in my last week of L.A. Law, and we shot the final day of 7 years of my life that were life-altering. And I left that set at 5 o'clock in the morning, came home. My girlfriend at the time, Desiree, who's now my wife of 14 years, she packed my bags. We went to the Bahamas that next morning to rehearse for that movie. So I knew after 7 years of doing a television series, and even then it was harder to make that transition from television to the big screen, I knew what that would mean professionally. It was an incredible career opportunity. I knew that. But in that film, the character I played was a serial killer and a pedophile. And I'm a black man. So I'm thinking, do I really want to put that image out there? And I had the great fortune, that's a whole nother story, to meet the great Sidney Poitier in my first year of doing LA Law. That's a whole nother story, but I was in New York doing press for my first week of LA Law, 7 years prior to Just Cause. And the plane ride back from New York to LA, my seat just happened to be next to him. And I just picked his brain for like 5 hours. I know I was driving him crazy. He said, "Will this kid leave me alone?" But he's been phenomenal making himself accessible over all these years. So I went to him with this dilemma. I said, I mean, I'd be a fool to pass this opportunity up. But I'm concerned because of this image of this black male being a pedophile and a serial killer, because we don't see a lot of images of black men anyway. And oftentimes they're most often negative images. And he said something very interesting to me. He said, you know, there's a time, like right now there's Danny Glover and Morgan Freeman and Denzel, of course, and Wesley Snipes. There are different shades and different images of the black male image now. And there has to come a time when you should have that right to play good guys and bad guys and not have to carry that mantle. He said, I went through that so you wouldn't have to. He said, so you play that role and you play it well. But what it did was it freed me up. And also just in the context of that particular film, because of Lawrence Fishburne, that image, it was a mystery, it's a murder mystery. So at the beginning you thought he was the bad guy and I was the innocent guy. And it flip-flopped. At the end I was the bad guy. I truly was. He was right all along. And he was the good guy at the end. So there's a balance, even in the context of that film, of that image. So yes, in answer to your question, more and more nowadays, because there is more varied images, yes, I do often think of, you're educating to a certain extent. I mean, I don't think it ever stops. I mean, I'm shooting a series right now I love called Dirty Sexy Money. And we did, thank you.
You're playing a billionaire.
Playing a billionaire, exactly. Who's Russian?
You don't screw around with millionaires anymore.
That's right.
It's a billionaire.
But that part of that, what intrigued me about the role when I spoke to Craig Wright, who created the show, was the fact that this was a man who was chocolate, and the backstory was Russian. I said, Craig, I'm a brother. How are we gonna do that? And he said something that I'd heard a little bit about, actually. And I'm embarrassed to say I did not know more about this history, but this is a little education that you can do and have just by your presence. And every once in a while, you can kind of seep some of that education out, or edutainment, as it's called. In a nutshell, in the 40s and 50s, there were a great many African Americans trying to escape Jim Crow South, and segregation and racism in this country, that actually moved to Russia, to the Soviet Union at the time. James Baldwin being one of them, and Paul Robeson, probably the most famous one of all. And there were many who stayed. For many, it was not the utopia they thought it was going to be, so they came back. But many did stay in Russia. And in the backstory, my parents were two of those people who actually worked for Donald Sutherland's family, the Darling family. And there was some kind of intrigue and all kinds of mystery stuff that was going on, but they were forced to leave the country. That's how they got to Russia. And I was born there, raised in Russian orphanages, and then this whole other mystery that I can't give away yet. But the fact that this man that looks like me came from Russia is not as far-fetched as I initially thought. So yeah, I get excited when I have a chance to do something like that, to not just play a character, but play a character for all the nuances and the complexities that we look for as actors, but also to surprise people. I think that is our greatest tool we have as actors, especially in building a career. When people watch your work year after year, come to see a play time after time, they've seen you. After a while, you have to have that element of surprise, whether the surprise is the role you're playing or just what you're revealing in your character. That element of surprise is vital.
It strikes me when you were talking about Sidney Poitier that it was almost like an angel came at the moment when you needed him to answer that question for you, to put your mind at ease. Do you believe in kind of like serendipity or some sort of, when you need it most, it'll happen? Have you have other examples of?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, my whole life. I'm a Christian, I should say that. So not only serendipity, I believe in blessings from God. And I'm a man of faith. I remember I went to college at Carnegie Mellon University, and they have, like all great conservatories, if you don't cut the mustard, so to speak, you're cut from the program. And you know what I'm saying? And I remember a lot of my friends would get real uptight, or were they going to be cut from the program? Would they not make it? And because of the way we were raised, and Desiree and I try to raise we have 3 kids now, try to raise our kids in the same manner, that what is going to be is going to be. You have to do your part, and you work the process as much as you can, but ultimately it's in God's hands. So I never really worried too much about it, but I think that sense of peace kind of helped me get through that process. And also with his business. I can't tell you, I started doing local dinner theaters in Richmond, Virginia when I first started. My dad retired in Petersburg, Virginia. Petersburg, who from Petersburg? Stop, like Carla with the K, what up, K? Good to see you. Wow, took me out for a second. So I started doing local dinner theaters there, and I just remember I was in high school, I was in junior high school, high school, my sophomore year in high school, doing local dinner theaters. Frank and I did a play there, my sister and I did a play there at this place called Swift Creek Mill Playhouse. And you remember that? And I just remember so many of the actors who had come before me. I'm always trying to learn from people. I'm always I'm hopefully perpetually curious. I'm always asking questions. And I would ask, how do I build a career? How do I follow this path? How do I do this? How do I do that? And Many of them actually had already gone to New York and came back to Richmond. And I kept hearing this statistic, only 2% of actors make it. Only 2% of actors make a living at it. And I would hear it and just say, okay, then I have to be in that 2%. I didn't know how, I didn't know if it would last. And I can tell you, over the last 23 years, there have been times when I was like, okay, maybe that worked for a couple of years, it's not happening right now. You know, that's the reality of what we do in this business. But it is the faith that has gotten me through to say it's going to be all right ultimately. And also finding other ways to balance it, finding other avenues to express that creativity.
How supportive were your family when you decided, when did you tell them, you know, I think I might want to go in this direction coming from a military family? Did that jive with
After
what
my dad said,
was
you're
thinking?
crazy as hell. No, they actually have been from day one very supportive. I found out later, both of them, my mom and my father, wanted to pursue acting at one point. But the reality of a black man, and male or female, pursuing an acting career in the 50s was just unrealistic. But they saw the desire in me and the passion in me, and they really kind of got behind it, which I'm very grateful for.
And Frank, did you also want to be an actor?
He still wants to be an actor. What are you talking about?
What was your? I got my SAG card. I did one movie and then I quit.
I actually became an actor because of him. Because when I was in junior high school, I was watching him. I was in junior high school in Michigan, and he was at that Michigan, right? No, Center.
Yes, Pentagon.
Where was it? What high school was it?
Fort Hunt.
Fort Hunt High School. He was doing a play, Phineas Rainbow, right?
Guys and dolls.
Anyway, Guys and Dolls. some musical. But anyway, I just remember hearing him every day come home and talk about the experience of just the process of learning the lines, and the audition, and getting the part, and learning the lines, and then all the things that happen on stage that the audience isn't aware of, that we as actors know about on stage, and getting out of those mistakes that happen on stage. And it's the magic that we all know and understand, the magic of theater, the magic of make-believe that I would hear just through him every day, and I just said, I want to do that.
Was theater your first exposure to entertainment? Was film? Do you remember watching films? When do you remember first going, oh wow, that's...
I'd have to say TV was my first exposure, but my first love has been, and always has been, always will be, the theater. But the first exposure was just a lot of kids watching TV. I remember 8 is Enough. So 8 is Enough. I remember watching 8 is Enough and watching the kids on there. And there was one kid, I remember watching the Mike Douglas show. I'm really aging myself. I was watching the Mike Douglas show, and I think the kid's name was Adam Rich.
Yeah.
And he was telling me he was telling the story of how his mother took him to an audition and how he got the job. Because I'm always thinking, how do you get a job in this business? How do I follow that path? And it just seemed like something fun to do. Just watching this kid on this talk show seemed like something that I might want to do. That got my attention. But then it was hearing it from him first, and then doing plays at school initially, and then doing local dinner theaters, and actually feeling that sense of being on stage and working with other actors and delving into characters and finding the levels, the stuff that we do, that we love.
What do you have a favorite dinner theater moment? Or?
Oh man, don't do that. No.
Closing the chapter on dinner theater, there we are.
No, listen, I'm not mad at dinner theaters. My philosophy has always been do what you can to get experience. Because I'm going to tell you something. When I went to Carnegie Mellon, there were a lot of elitists in my class, and you'd hear people talk about doing soap operas. And when I was, my whole year, I was a freshman, sophomore, junior, the seniors, when they were about to go into the world, would just really look down their nose. And I would never do a soap opera. I would never do a commercial because I'm a thespian. Yeah. I'm like, oh, okay, but you got to work. You got to make money. So I figured, you just got to be smart about it and strategize and just realize, always look at the lay of the land, because that land is always changing. You and I were just talking about what's going on with our union right now and the state of actors and the middle class actors and all of that stuff is important to kind of monitor and be realistic about the world we're in right now.
Did you have to audition to get into Carnegie Mellon?
Oh yeah.
Do you remember what you did?
Yeah, I was actually a music theater major, where we had to sing, dance, and act. Because when I was doing.
You play an instrument?
No. I was doing Phineas Rainbow.
Oh, that you.
Well, no, he did actually do a play at one
You sure
point.
wasn't?
But later on, I was doing the dinner theater version of Phineas Rainbow. and again, trying to pick people's brains, trying to learn and ask questions. I was talking to this actress named Eloise LeBron backstage, and I said, I really think I want to pursue this. I want to go to college and learn how to do this acting thing. And she said to me, then what you need to do, you need to cover as many bases as possible. You need to become a triple threat. I remember asking, well, okay, what is that? She said, that means you have to learn how to sing, dance, and act. So then you have more options to find employment. I said, oh, okay. So then I started doing homework and then learned about these different universities, and I had applied to like Wayne State and North Carolina School of the Arts and Carnegie Mellon. And I went there and auditioned with my dad, drove there to Pittsburgh. But yeah, I remember singing Mr. Bojangles for the singing and the dancing. I've never been much of a dancer. I can move now. I can move, but not much of a dancer. I have flat feet. My dance teacher used to always say, point those biscuits. You know, he was always just dogging me out because I couldn't point my toes. I said, nah, I don't really want to point my toes anyway, so I'm not even trying to go. And the acting, I don't remember, but it was a couple monologues.
So then where? You graduate. How was your time at Carnegie Mellon?
It was great.
Is that 4 years you went through straight through?
No, I did 3 years and I left in the middle of my junior year because we couldn't afford it anymore. My dad was right at that kind of economic level where we could not afford college. So two kids in school, he was in school.
And the more money you make, the less money they help you with.
What's that?
And the more money you make, the less money you get from the state, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, but I got no financial aid because my dad was at that bracket where they said, well, you make too much money for financial aid, but we needed aid. And he was in college, and he stayed in college, and I just, during Christmas break, said, I'm gonna just take this chance and see if I can get a headshot, 8x10 black and white headshot, and go to New York and start knocking on doors and see what happens. But I was really forced to leave. I was forced to leave because I couldn't afford it. I remember talking to financial aid people, and they couldn't find an option. And I was doing well in classes, and they just couldn't find it in them to find any money anywhere. That's an expensive school. And I said, I can't find any money anywhere. But I tell you what's interesting about that, because, but again, I remember going to my faith saying, maybe now's the time. Maybe that's a sign that it's just time to go out there. And as it turned out, it was the time, because the Cosby Show happened my second day when I was in New York, and it was 1985 in their first year. And that just opened up so many doors just to get started. But it was funny because after my first year of LA Law, I get this letter from Carnegie Mellon saying, we'd like for you to graduate. I was like, yeah, I bet you do now. But it was fun, and I knew it. You guys know in this industry, is that Lydia? What's up, baby? That's Lydia. I haven't seen her in a long time. We'll catch up afterwards. But I realized, I lost strength, I'm sorry.
You're going to New York, the Cosby Show.
Yeah. So I knew I didn't need to have a diploma for this industry, and we know that. It's really about what you can do. If you know the craft, you can do the job. Nobody asked if you have a diploma, but it helps if you have the training. But
don't they ask for headshot, resume, and diploma?
Yeah, all the time. But I wanted to complete it for myself. I hate starting something and not finishing, so I actually went back, and I had to write a final thesis on, the assignment was write on what you've learned since you've been in the business. I had been out 3 years at that time, and what I had learned was that it is a multi-billion-dollar industry, and that as much as we are artists, we have to be entrepreneurs as well. That was the biggest lesson. So I wrote this 15-page thesis, because I took it seriously. I knew I could just go and get the diploma, but I took it seriously. So I wrote this paper called The Business of Show. Now, tie these two things in. When I went to New York to do that press, that first week of LA Law, I was going to spend those 5 hours flying back from New York to LA writing that paper when I sat next to Sidney Poitier. That thesis became the conversation I had with him, and those pearls of wisdom that he kept dropping on me. I put them in my paper. And I was just asking him questions that I think of to this day, because I remember at the time, if you remember, this was 1985, LA Law was the biggest dramatic show on the air. And they were in their second season. I came in as this new kid. I was 21 years old, hadn't been out of college, I think a year and a half, maybe a year and a half. And everybody's telling you what to do, and you need more publicity. You should be on the cover of this, you should do this, because Corbin Burns and Harry Hamlin and Susan, they were everywhere. I'm like, hey man, I just want to do what I can do. But everybody's telling you what you should do. And I remember asking him about, what about this whole publicity thing? I don't understand this business, I just want to work. And he said, just do the work, don't fall in line. He told me a story about when he had done the Defiant ones with Tony Curtis. And Tony Curtis was as big as Tom Cruise, Brad Pitt is today, during that time. And everybody was telling him, you know, you should have your name above the title with Tony Curtis, but he knew he was the new kid on the block. And it was Tony Curtis who said, you know, basically, just do the work. And then Tony Curtis went behind the scenes and insisted that his name be above the title with his. So basically, he was saying, keep your focus. And the focus is the work. You have to be cognizant of the business, and you have to balance it. But at the end of the day, it still always comes back to the work.
What does it mean to you, and how has it changed, and how to be an entrepreneur in the business?
How's it changed to be an entrepreneur?
From then to now, you said what you learned is that it is a business and you need to be an entrepreneur. And how did you start to attack that, and then how has that changed and evolved?
Before I did LA Law, I had done a 3-month stint on a soap opera called One Life to Live. I played a character named Bobby Blue. And because soap operas are on every day, that fan base is very strong. And I saw from the fan mail that would come in, the more time you had on screen was directly linked to how much fan mail you got. So, say, fast forward a year later, I'm doing LA Law. And somebody made a mistake, and they gave the actors a list of how much fan mail each character got. Somehow I got hold of it somehow. And I had just been on the show a short period of time, but I saw that the fan mail was it was up near the top. But I wasn't getting screen time like that. So this was my first year, and I did the show for 7 years. So in that second year, I found myself getting very frustrated. And anybody who's been on a series, especially if it's a popular series, can tell you, and I've had friends who've gone through this, it's a double-edged sword because you're employed, you have a job. That's exciting, and that's a necessity. You're happy to have that. And then you almost feel guilty when you start complaining because you're like, I want more screen time. I want to be able to express my gift. I want to be able to give more. And it's frustrating when you're just beating your head up against the wall and it's not happening. So it was really in my second season where I kind of made the shift to really start focusing on the business and start asking questions like, what do you do behind that camera, and what lens is that? How does that work, and why is that light there? You know, just asking questions. So I kind of really made the transition from just going to my trailer, coming in and hitting my mark, to staying on the set in between and learning what different people did on the set. And I kind of realized about 6 years ago that what I really, from the very beginning, wanted to do was tell stories. It just manifested itself as an actor initially. And now it's gone into books and reality TV. My producer partner, Tommy Morgan's right here. We have a company called Intrepid that's right now focusing on we hope, quality reality TV. But that's a means to an end. That's a means to an end. Once you kind of get your producing legs and you understand how that's done and you learn the game, then you can do more of really what you want to do, which is tell stories and work with actors.
I want to talk about the reality television in a couple minutes, but no, I want to talk about that.
Right.
I had a thought. When you're working in an ensemble and everybody is strong, tell me about the dynamic that happens when, though you may deserve or believe that you should have more screen time, who do you take it away from necessarily? Because if there's only 60 minutes or minus the commercials.
Yeah.
How do you? It'd be interesting because somebody has to be on screen when somebody's not on screen. You can't all be there doing party scenes every time around.
Well, it's a tricky thing. That's clearly up to the writers and the executive producers who write it. But it is a dance. I mean, going back to Dirty Sexy Money right now, which is a big ensemble. Lucy Liu just joined the cast this year, so that's one more cast member. And it's a dance, but they do it well, and it can be fulfilling because I think our cast maybe have 11, 12 regulars, but when they write, when you work, it's so far. This is our second season. It's very interesting, and it's fun to come to work. But it's not easy, and I don't know how they do it with that many cast members.
So I don't know. I know one of your shows is Easy Money. Is that what it's called?
It was initially called Easy Money, and then became $1 Million Christmas.
And it's about lottery winners.
Yeah, this was an idea Tommy brought to me like, and y'all can appreciate this, maybe 4 years ago. He said, man, I got this idea. Reality TV is doing all this great stuff. Tommy's an actor too. I met Tommy when we were he did an episode of LA Law back in the day, and he said, man, reality TV is not going anywhere, and he's always got an idea. And I said, man, listen, I'm an actor. I'm not trying to give love to reality TV right now. It's taking jobs away from writers, producers, directors, boom, boom, boom. We know the story. He said, yeah, but it's not going anywhere. He said, if there's a way we can do it where it's kind of interesting, and then we just use that as a stepping stone. I said, well, if it's an idea, if we can sell a couple shows, yeah, maybe. So anyway, this was an idea. He said, listen, what happens to people when they win the lottery? Basically, how does it affect their lives? How does it change their lives? More importantly, how does it affect the lives of people around them? And I said, it's a great idea. We tried to pitch it to every network around town. They said, look, it's not a novel idea. We've heard the idea. The problem is getting cameras on people once they've won that kind of money. Everybody wants to kind of be a recluse and not talk about it. So fast forward 3 years later, long story short, we found these 13 lottery winners in St. Louis who won the biggest, seventh largest Powerball ever. It was like $245 million, split between 13 people. And Tommy just got on the phone and called the manager of the guys who actually, they pulled the money together. And he allowed us to, he said, yeah, we'll talk to you. So we got on the plane. I had a video camera, he had a video camera, went on our own ticket and sat down with them and just kind of put them on tape, cut together what they call, a sizzle reel, like 6-minute thing. But we had the goods. We had people who were willing to go on camera. And it was really just, a wing and a prayer, saying, trust us. In this business, that doesn't go too far. But, we went with it, and out of the 13, we got about 6 of them to agree to do it. So it ended up being on TLC. It ultimately became 2 one-hour specials, which aired last Christmas.
What surprised you about what you learned?
About that?
From the people.
Oh.
I'm sure you went in thinking, everybody's heard the story about something like some crazy percentage of lottery winners are broke within a short amount of time.
that always lose their money. How fearful they were. I think I would be too, because it's instant wealth, and everybody's coming at. Everybody's coming at you. Family members, employees, everybody. Women trying to marry the guys, and guys trying to hit on the women. And it's crazy. It's crazy. So I could be empathetic to them to a certain point. But mine wasn't that instant. It wasn't, trust me, wasn't that much. Never been that much.
No, but there's definitely a certain. You did well pretty young, at a pretty young age. You started on the ride. A lot of people. I'm not even sure what I said.
What are you getting at, Anthony?
No. In other words, I think an actor has to learn this lesson time and time again. Okay, I'm on the ride. Everything's good. It's going to be good from here on out. It's not so good. All right, I'm back on the ride. Here we go. It's kind of like winning, not quite $240 million, but there's a certain level of, hey, I made it, and reality comes in and goes like this, and you got to learn that lesson again. So that I would think that you'd be uniquely situated as an actor and a successful actor to say, I get you.
Well, I have to say that did help. And just kind of relating to them, and just explaining somewhat of that story. To convince them that we're not here to try to take your money, and we're not trying to do trash television, but I see where you're coming from, and we just think that's an interesting psychological and personal place to be. How do you deal with that kind of money when it's thrust upon you? So it did kind of work.
So here's your script. You look at it. What attracts you to a role? Is there an aha moment where you say, this is the one I'm going to do?
Different things at different times. If I've done it before, I'm not trying to do it again. I'm not interested in playing a lawyer again or a doctor. If I've done it before, I'm not trying to necessarily do it again unless I can show different shades. But also I like to be challenged somewhat. And that's what's difficult in this business, because when you do one thing, everybody wants to come at you. If they're coming at you, they're not always coming at you. But if they are, it's to do something you've done before. So it's challenging, and it's hard, especially if they're throwing money on the table or just offering you a job.
What is something that is there something you look at and you're afraid of? Is there something you go, oh man, that's maybe down the road, like everybody has their King Lear. Is there something out there that you're like, that's a challenge and it's scary, maybe I'm not ready for it, or maybe you weren't ready for it and you over time you did get to do it?
Yeah. Well, you say King Lear, Othello is one of them. That's down the road, way down the road. But of course, that's something I'd love to try to attack one day, no time soon.
How do you balance all the different options you have for yourself between theater and producing and directing and writing? You write novels. You have a writing partner or two.
Priorities, but also it's really a lot of people around you that help. I have a tremendous publicist here in Lee Wallman, who's phenomenal. I have a great producing partner. My brother Frank and I started a production company initially, and and agents and managers, they all take all those commissions going away, all that money going away. But it's trying to find out what's most important and what's important now, because what's important now is not the same thing that was important maybe even 2 years ago. And the roles I'm looking to play now are different than what I was hoping to play a couple of years ago. And really, I just want to say this too, because I think one of the biggest lessons I learned was not to wait for anybody. And I say this all the time, I sound like a broken record sometimes, because I'm 43 now, I'll be 44 in a couple months. And I talked to a lot of my contemporaries, and Lydia and I go back, geez, until I first came, and we've always talked about being an entrepreneur and creating your own projects and being your own boss. What it does is it empowers you as an artist, so you're not beholden to a network or a studio or a casting director calling you. That drives me insane, it really does. Because if you're in this business, there's something inside of us that says we have something to offer. We have something to give an audience. And if somebody, a casting director or a producer or a network doesn't see it, it cuts deep, and especially if it's not seen for year after year after year. So the only way I learned, and this goes back to that second year of LA Law, which is 1987, was I need to find a way to create these opportunities for myself. And not only myself, because every job you create, you're hiring about 150 to 200 people. If you're doing an independent film or whatever, it's a job in this business, you're hiring at least 100 people. So you're creating employment for other people. But it all goes back to just something Stephen Bochco told me. First year in LA Law, he said, write. I said, Mom, I'm not a writer. He said, write. You have ideas, take the time, write them down. You can partner with a writer, put the ideas on paper. It all goes back to storytelling. That's the only way I've been able to keep my sanity, and truly, sincerely, in this business, and not get bitter or frustrated. And then what happens is it's a magnetic thing that occurs because it attracts opportunity and employment to you. You know what I mean? It's like, what came first, the chicken or the egg?
All right, tell me about your relationship to the audition process.
Oh, Lord, I hate auditioning. I swear I hate auditioning. Wow. I mean, I think about it. I used to work at Busch Gardens in between college. And
Did you wear a three-pointed hat, or?
Yeah, how'd you know that?
I've seen Busch Gardens, I've been there.
Yeah, but we would do 5 shows a day, 6 days a week, performing. And I just remember the cattle calls where you'd have to go in there, you'd have to sing, and you have to dance and just perform. And it's what as performers we love to do. But it's that thing inside of you that says, again, it goes back to knowing yourself and knowing that you have something and to prove it. And oftentimes, it's exciting to have to prove it, to say, okay, give me a shot, let me do it, let me show you what I got. But sometimes it wears you down. You're not. It's hard to get that energy up to say, okay, let me prove this to you, even though I've known it since birth. Let me prove it to you again. So that, and also it can be nerve-wracking, but I tell you, in producing now, and I just directed my first film last year. It's a very interesting thing being on the other side of the table. And it is, going back to City of Angels, which Stephen Bochco gave me my break. And then fast forward maybe 10 years later, we did City of Angels together that he created. That's a whole other interesting story. But I remember being in there because my character was the head of the hospital. And then the female lead, Vivica Fox ended up playing, was the medical director of the hospital. And I remember I had a say in who they would cast. And watching the auditions and reading with the different actresses, I just remember seeing, not only there, but in other rooms, a lot of desperation. And I remember back at Carnegie Mellon, Patrick Dempsey was doing a road play of memoirs. What's the Neil Simon play? Brighton Beach Memoirs. Yeah. And they came through Pittsburgh and came and spoke to our class. I remember Patrick was like 16 years old, something like that. But I remember him saying then, he said, people get so nervous when they come into a room. And the director of that production said, you know what, you're actors. When you go in that room, don't be desperate, even when you are, because you got to pay the bill. Sometimes it's about the rent, sometimes just the phone bill.
That's almost like saying don't be too tall or too short.
Exactly, that's how I took it. But you're right. But then his point was, your actors act as if you're not desperate, because it's that intangible thing, and I see it so often. In that room, being on the other side. It's that intangible sense of nerves and desperation that 9 times out of 10, man, I tell you, it works against you. And if you can find that place of just letting it go, which is, we all have a different way to get there, but just to throw it away and act and just put yourself in that mindset of, if I get it, it's great. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, and move on. Then it just frees you up.
And
but it took me a way to get there, and it doesn't always happen.
And you got to work with Patrick Dempsey quite early on, didn't you?
Actually, no, I haven't worked with Patrick.
Oh, wait a minute, wait. Didn't you do
a...
Thank you, Connie Stevens, yes. Did you do the Academy Awards with Jolie Fisher?
That's right. Wow. Yeah. See, I put that out of my head. Do you guys remember the Academy Awards the year that Snow White came out on stage?
Rob Lowe, wasn't that Rob Lowe?
Oh, there you go. And the press dogged it. I said, man, the Academy Awards have become cheesy. Okay, because it was Rob Lowe and Snow White, that caught so much hell. Mm-hmm. There was another production, and it was supposed to be like up-and-coming young people in the business, and it was. It was Patrick Dempsey, it was Connie Stevens' daughter, Jolie Fisher, it was Savion Glover, and Ricky Lake was doing it also, and I think Mario Van Peebles. But anyway, but yeah, and I had fun, and Patrick was in that too.
You had to sing and dance for that too.
Yeah.
So the triple threat played itself out. That's good. Tell me about the negotiation that goes on when you're playing a character and actually on both sides of the camera, when that character is yours to some extent, and yet it also belongs to the director and it belongs to the writer. Tell me about I guess you have to pick your battles at certain points. Maybe give me some of your insight into how that negotiation takes place and what works for you and what doesn't work for you. When do you say, you know what, you're wrong, or when do you take a stand?
Wow. Okay, we're being real, right? All right. I had a negotiation very recently with, I'll go back to LAX. I did a series called LAX with Heather Locklear a couple of years ago. Thank you. You were the one that saw it. But I had seen a lot of the sets I worked on. I didn't see a lot of African Americans on the crew. And Heather had signed on first, and she was number 1 on the call sheet, and I was number 2. And of course, the more prominent you are, the more say you have on what goes on. And when I got the part, I remember talking to the producers saying, before we sign on, I just want to say to you, and I'm not necessarily going to make a big deal out of this, because I don't want to have to go there, but it is important to me. This goes back to something I used to have a sign on my wall that said, a diplomat is someone who can tell you to go to hell in such a way that you actually look forward to the trip. And I learned that from my dad. My dad is smooth, so I learned that from my dad. So I just said, look, I don't want to have to go there, because but I'm just saying, it would be important to me if when I'm working, I see some other people in the crew that look like me. That's all I'm saying. And that was Joe Russo, and he was great, and they made an attempt to do that. And if they couldn't find somebody for a certain part or a certain position, then I said, let me know. I got friends. I have access. I know how to get it there. I'm gonna say it one. That's right. You were there because we were in a meeting, and I said, I got to take this call to close the deal. But yeah, that, and then I won't say this. Yeah. But no, actually, okay, when we did Dirty Sexy Money, 'cause this is important for negotiations, and trying to build a career and understanding what's important to you and understanding where support has always come from. When I signed on to do Dirty Sexy Money, I was actually just finishing. Oh, hello. I was just finishing up In Treatment, which happened to be on stage 24. Thank you. Which was weird, and this was just God, to be honest with you. But I was on stage 24 at Paramount, and I was finishing my last week of In Treatment, and that's when I got the call from Craig Wright to come in and join Dirty Sexy Money cast, and it turned out they're shooting on stage 25 at Paramount, right next door to stage 25. And I remember during lunch of shooting our final episode, Craig came over with Matt Gross and took me next door and showed me the set and everything, and we went up to his office and started talking about who this character was. And I said, okay, I love everything you're saying with the creative. Let me just say this to you. First and foremost, what's important to me is that the character has all the complexities and dimensions that they have. I don't believe in leading with your race. I don't believe in leading with your gender. Find the human commonality. Now, That said, I know personally the base that has been with me, who have supported me from the time I first started, the base have been African American women from the very beginning. And I said, the last 3 or 4 projects I've done, Old Christine, In Treatment, Heather Locklear in LAX, wow, Sex and the City, have been with white women. And I said, I obviously don't have a problem with that. If you look at all those projects, and I had this conversation with every producer before I went on. I said, if we do this together, then we have to take race off the table. Because then in the context of that show, unless it is about the nuances of what that interracial relationship is all about, unless you have time to really deal with it, let's take it off the table. So each one of those projects, it almost never comes up. Same with Dirty Sexy Money, it almost never comes up. So what I said to Craig initially in that room was, it's important to me that as we're creating this character, that there is a woman of color that is important in his life, whatever that relationship may be. And they've done that, and Gina Torres came in last year as this Ghanaian princess. And it's important to me to mix it up so everybody's represented. Somebody asked me, I'm gonna tell it. Entertainment, I'm gonna tell it, David, I'm gonna tell it. But Entertainment Weekly wants to do the story. This just happened today. I'm telling it. They're not gonna broadcast it. They want to do the story about the lack of diversity in television today, and how come Blair Underwood, when's he gonna work with a black actress? And they said, would he ever like to work with a black actress? I just heard this before he came out here. I wrote down a whole list. I said, let me break down how many actors I've worked with who are black. And aside from things I'm producing that have to do with that, because there's a dearth of that, there's a lack of that, so there's an importance in that. So it's very much a passion of mine to be able to show all of those types of relationships, all of those types of people, all of those types of characters. And the way you do that, you have to be cognizant of, and you have to bring what's important to you up. You have to bring those issues up in the casting or in the negotiation, so early on that you have that.
Who's on your wish list?
Of
people to work with.
Well, you.
Well, of course.
Work with you.
I can't help you with your fan base, your strong fan base back from.
Well, let me say, it started with that, and I'm grateful. It's with different projects, it broadens. So you just have to be cognizant of that.
But aren't there people out there you go, oh, I'd like to work with that person,
absolutely.
Regardless of color or.
There's Niecy Nash, of course.
Again.
And Lydia Nicole.
I thought you liked to do different things,
No, my favorites are people. Meryl Streep comes to mind. Cicely Tyson, I've had the honor to work with a number of times.
You want to do a revival of The Wiz?
It's not a bad idea.
I saw her.
Actually, not a bad idea. Sidney Poitier, Al Pacino, Duvall. Those are my favorites.
What's the most recent example of anybody's work that you particularly admire?
What's interesting? It's funny you say that. I went to see, and I really wasn't necessarily going to go see it. My wife dragged me to see Sex and the City this weekend. And I think Sarah Jessica Parker is one of those actresses who's always been consistent, and she's too good to be ever bad. But I watched it, and you kind of remind. Has anybody seen it, ladies? All right. The guys are like, no, dog, we don't do that. Yeah, who said that? You want to see it? All right, bro. But sometimes it takes something different for people to take a look at you differently. For me, In Treatment has been that thing. You can tell by people's response to it. Say, well, I didn't know he could do that necessarily. Or you forget. I'm watching Sarah Jessica Parker, and I was really reminded of what a tremendous actress she really is. I said that to my wife. I said I sat there just in awe of what she was doing, and maybe because it was on the big screen, or maybe because in that movie she goes through. I won't ruin it. I'm not ruining it if you say it, but she goes through highs and lows. I'll just say that, and to see her take those highs and lows and incrementally come out of those lows was phenomenal to watch. The reason the actors I mentioned to you are my favorites because of their subtlety in their work. So I'm constantly drawn to subtlety.
What about directors?
Oh, Spielberg, Scorsese, and that's not just because they're the.
Did you see Indy?
Say again?
Did you see Indy?
I have not seen Indy yet. But I like him not just because he's obviously famous, but because he knows how to tell a story. And you look at some of these movies whether the superhero movies or the movies that they're trying to be like a Spielberg-ish type movies, and you realize it's not as easy as people think it might be. And someone like Spielberg has his finger on the pulse of humanity, of people, what makes people laugh and cry. And I just think he's amazing.
So how did you get involved with In Treatment?
Also, I should say Steven Soderbergh also. Again, just, you look at the year he had Aaron Brockovich and Traffic, two very different types of movies. And then having the opportunity to work with him in a film called Full Frontal, to see his process, which is really just, he does, more than half the work is choosing the right actor or actress. And if you do that, you let them fly. I think when I directed my film last year, I thought of him more than anybody else out of all I had of directors I've worked with, because I knew the work was in casting the right actor. And then really it's all about, tweaks here and there.
What else did you learn from him?
From him? Not to get in the way. Not to get in the way. And nothing is necessarily sacred. Because you work with people, I know a lot of us have worked with directors or writers, and that's why sometimes writers aren't allowed on sets. I've seen writers thrown off sets sometimes, because every word becomes sacred. And some directors where every moment has to be just right. Those are those nights when you're doing 50, 30 takes. Man, drives me crazy. But just, it's like, set the tone, set the frame, and if you have the right actor, give them the right thing, and let them play. Let them play. So I think the greatest lesson I learned from Soderbergh was just creating the playground and allowing the actors the freedom to play. He doesn't really say a whole lot. He doesn't really give you a lot of direction. He leads you in the right groove and then lets you go.
I think it's often the directors who are most secure in their own position and work that that are able to say, okay, I can accept the colors from other people who are involved in the project.
Right.
So, what made you? What brought you to the point where you said, I'm ready to direct something?
I don't know if I felt I was ready when I did it. I just knew it scared me, which said to me it was what I should try to do. If it makes me nervous, or it's like being on the edge of the unknown, is what excites me. That was unknown to an extent. I know I love acting. I know I love working with great actors. So that was my playground. The technical aspect, if you hire a great DP and you hire a great crew, it'll take care of itself. And that was, I think, my least favorite thing to do, was actually doing the shot list.
Yeah.
But it was necessary, so I felt confident, and also it engendered a confidence in the cast and the crew that I knew what I was doing.
Plus, you have to sell that.
You gotta sell the ideas, yeah.
Somebody has to go, yeah, I get your vision, I hear you.
So you better have a vision, yeah. And really, that was the biggest lesson too with the directing. Have a vision, number one, and almost more importantly, know how to communicate it. Because we work with directors who don't know how to communicate a vision. It's like, look, you're talking, I'm in my emotional, I'm ready to go, just say action, and they're not communicating at all.
It's really almost kind of too late for this question, but I just love how straight out it is. Why acting?
Did you write that?
No. This is. You're gonna have to help me. It's more. Tarnu.
Tanu?
Massaquoi.
All right. Where are you from?
Liberia.
Liberia. Wait a minute. Petersburg. Weren't there some slaves from Petersburg, Virginia, that started Liberia, right? Ah, okay. See, we're all connected. See? So what is it? Why acting?
Yep.
Why acting?
Straight out. Why acting?
Why acting? Make believe. I'm a child at heart. I'm a kid at heart. I have the utmost fun with my kids. My kids are 11, 9, and 7, and they look at me like I'm crazy half the time. And that is the greatest honor to me, to see them laugh when Daddy's just acting the fool. I love. But it really was the fact that I love becoming different characters, and that's the one thing that can become frustrating when people want to put you in a box. You're that kind of actor. You're that upscale black guy, but you could do more than that. So the diversity of character and the opportunity to play different types of people is what got me into it. And that's, I think, really one of the blessings now. I look back, it kind of hit me. I was doing a film called Rules of Engagement in Morocco with them, like Sam Jackson and Tommy Lee Jones. And first of all, let me just say this. That was one of the most incredible acting exercises I had ever done. And that exercise is, there's a guy named Captain Dale Dye, who takes actors. He started with Platoon. He takes actors and he puts them through basic training. I mean, it's real basic training. This guy's hardcore. And he had us in the Sahara Desert in Morocco for 7 days and 6 nights, preparing just to basic training. Sleeping on the rocks at night, no hotel, nothing. That's it for 7 days. But it was the best acting exercise because I was the captain of all these men. I didn't know what I was doing, so I had to learn what I was supposed to be doing and then act like I knew what I was doing and be that captain.
He make you lead them
And
through the exercise?
absolutely, absolutely. And we ultimately had to, I think we had to rescue the ambassador who was Ben Kingsley of whatever it was, the American embassy, that's what it was. So we had to train to really infiltrate, come in helicopters and infiltrate that whole thing. But the way he worked it, Captain Dale Dye, was we had to be in character 24/7. The only time we could come out of character was for 1 hour around the campfire, or if we had any questions about the movie we were there to make. But other than that, he said, you talk to me as that captain, everybody be who you're supposed to be. So that was really one of the greatest acting exercises I've ever had. But I remember being in the Sahara Desert, and he was teaching us how to throw grenades. And I just thought about what you said, why acting? I remember thinking about, wow, I kind of learned how to throw that grenade when I played Jackie Robinson and really learned how to throw a baseball. And there were like 3 or 4 things, I can't remember what it was now. I kind of learned that when I played that role. I kind of learned that when I played an astronaut in Deep Impact. And it was like, it's a blessing, and I'm grateful for it, because I know it's not guaranteed. To have a dream as a kid and say, I want to do that because I love make-believe. And that's the kind, in that moment, it just hit me that I've had a chance to do that. And then then you have other goals, and then you want other people to have that same, to be able to realize that same dream. That's where part of the producing came. That's why I said it wasn't just for me, it's to employ other people, to tell other stories.
Without naming names, anybody less than impressive during the basic training portion of the... did everybody...
No names you would know.
Everybody do fine, or did
Well,
you...
no names you would know. Let me just say, Sam came out like a 3rd or 4th day because he had been in the hotel just to kind of watch him. He didn't have to do it. They gave us the option. He said, you don't have to. I mean, if you want to, you can just act it. You all know that famous story was with Dustin Hoffman and Marathon Man. Just act, my dear boy. So you didn't have to, but I wanted to, and it seemed like a great challenge. I wouldn't do it again, but I'm glad I did it.
I think everybody has that desire to test themselves. Did you? And how'd you?
Well, yeah.
Were you happy with how you held up, or?
Yeah. I think somewhat foolish. I remember when I think the 6th day they brought in the choppers, and we had to go up on the choppers because we had to actually land in front of the embassy, which was supposed to be, I think, in Iran or something, but actually land in the helicopters, come out of the helicopters and go into the embassy and rescue the ambassador. And now, I mean, I know it's a movie. I mean, I could use anybody, really. The camera's going to be a mile back, but I wanted to kind of experience that. And then there were some guys who were actually, they're all like former military, or some were active duty, actually. And they said they did not want to go up in those helicopters because they were Moroccan pilots, and they didn't trust them, and they didn't want to die. I was like, good point. But it was probably stupid that I did, to be honest with you. But Captain Dye said, you have the option. Do you want to go up with them or not? Now, again, mind you, I had lived with these guys 7 for a week, 7 days.
The helicopter pilots?
No, for my battalion, my men, for 7 days. I mean, and you really go, I'm telling you, it's hardcore. For a week, anybody who's been, my brother's been to basic training, I mean, it's not the real deal. It's not like for weeks and weeks. But for that week, if you're not used to it, it's pretty intense. So I felt responsibility because I was their captain. Because we'd kind of made that transition to lead these men, and they were looking to me, and they're like, well, Blair, if you're not going, or Captain Lee, his name, Captain Lee, if you're not going up, do we have to go? I said, no, I'm going up, so you're going up. When I thought about that after, I said, what the hell, what was I thinking? So.
Yeah, there comes a time when you go, I could die doing this.
Right, exactly, that was one of those times.
Yeah. Did you get any insight or have a new understanding or appreciation for your dad after an experience like that?
Oh yeah. My dad, I'm proud to say, he won the Purple Heart. He was wounded his first day in Vietnam, first couple of weeks in Vietnam, and came back and recuperated in Japan and came back and finished his tour. But one of the exercises we had was to navigate through the desert at night. And they'd set up just different like war games where they would attack you. It was all like blanks and everything, but again, as their captain, I had to actually lead them from point A to, I'm talking like 4 or 5 miles through the desert at night. for real. A few times I said, man, it's just a movie, dog. It's just a movie. but during that, because I knew my dad had done that in Vietnam. You know, he was a ranger and had done a lot of navigating through there, so I had a whole new respect. My respect level's up there, but another respect for what he did.
Tell me more about In Treatment first. How did you, what drew you to that character?
Part of it was the military background. But the challenge of it, because as I said, theater is my first love, the fact that it's basically a one-act play. I mean, you've got two actors talking. So the chance to do that, I love the opportunity to do that. And when I had seen, this was initially an Israeli series that was very popular in Israel. So we had the chance to see at least the first week of every character in Hebrew. It was subtitled. And all the characters are the very same characters, same archetypes, same storylines. And I watched the parallel character, who was an Israeli fighter pilot. In his story, he had bombed a Palestinian school of children. And I was compelled and blown away, even reading subtitles, by just the storytelling. And I think the bravery to just turn the camera on and let the actors do what actors do. So I just really commend HBO for doing and having the bravery to do it. Because, you know, it's not for everybody. You know, to sit down at TV and just watch that. But for those who watched, I think it really gave them something to watch and be entertained, and also be very thought-provoking.
You have a preference? Obviously, the way that pay television has evolved, they can take greater risks. Do you prefer that to creating a character and building it over several years on a network television show? Can you compare them? What do you like about each one?
Unfortunately, this was 9 weeks, so I mean, just in terms of paying the bills, it's 9 weeks and that's it. So you got to do something else. But I do like the risk taking. That's why I like independent films. The risk taking in this, when I finally saw how it was cut together, it was such an unusual thing to watch it. Because what struck me when I saw it cut together, I knew what we shot, how we shot it, but when I saw it edited, most often when you do something, especially something like Dirty Sexy Money, which I love for different reasons, it's quick, it's fast, it's happening. This one, they let you, because we did the pauses, and oftentimes when I work, I try to just be as honest as possible and let the pauses be where pauses should be. Most times, they'll cut those pauses in half, which affects the performance that we're trying to, that's in our head and kind of in our inner clock. But they didn't. Within treatment, they left those moments in and those pauses in. So, and that's a risk to do that, because they're afraid people will tune out. So that I enjoyed that process of it, and it's more challenging. It gives you more to do.
How do you feel when you hear about or read about somebody like Ed Norton going to the mat for his cut or his do you want to have that?
I hadn't heard that.
Oh,
what, for the Hulk?
Supposedly in American History X, and then again in the Hulk, he has gone to the mat for this is the cut. And I think he had final cut for the Hulk or something close to that, and whatever. I mean, would you like to have that? In other words, once you're done, you've done your job, quote unquote, the acting, and now it's in someone else's hands, and they can take that and turn it into a completely different thing. Yeah, but do you just let that go? Are you able to just walk away from that? And I did my thing, and I know I was good, and I don't care what they made out of it.
I don't always know that, by the way. But no, I'd rather just let it go. I mean, really, I'm telling you, after directing the film was called The Bridge to Nowhere, but after directing that and having to have an answer for every little thing, when I came back and finished In Treatment, the last thing I wanted to do was answer anything except, where's my mark? Let me just play the character. You know what I mean? So it's sometimes refreshing to just let it go. Other times, if it's your passion, if it's your baby, then you want to have a say in that. That's why I asked, is he a producer? Or is he solely an actor?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, well then he should, if he's a producer. And his name's above the title, he's the biggest name in the Hulk, right? Yeah, he should. If he's a producer, he should have a say in that, yeah.
Harry wants to know if you consciously work on objectives in your scenes.
Where's Harry?
Right here.
Hey, Harry.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. Objectives. Yeah, it's so funny. We get a bad rap, don't we, as actors sometimes? Whenever they want to joke on us, they say, "What's my objective?" Well, you gotta know. You gotta, yes, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's important to know, what do you want? What do you want? It's funny, I think it relates oftentimes in life. I find, I was talking to my kids the other day just about everything you do is about what you want. You don't do anything unless you want something from that other person or that other situation. It's also a transference of energy. Sometimes it's a positioning, but you want something, whether it's position or you want knowledge or wisdom or an answer or you want love. It's something there. So I think, I think it's critical in our work to know what you're going for, because also that's going to drive the scene. Yeah, thank you.
Do you have another example of when you might have had to turn to your learning, your education, your technique to get you through or to approach a level that you were having trouble with a character or in a scene, or where you said, you know what, I don't know how to hit this, I don't know how to get where I need to go, and you said, I remember, I learned something.
No, let me come back to that one.
All right. How about what have you learned from as an actor?
Yeah.
From directors you've worked with? Somebody ever say to you something that really resonated with you?
Yeah. When I did Just Cause, Arnie Glimcher directed Just Cause, and I remember him saying, you've been doing TV for 7 years, and you got the part because I believe you're the best, you're the right one for the part. But he said, watch, this was like in the first week of shooting, watch Sean Connery when you work with him. Because in the story, Sean Connery plays a lawyer, and he thinks, I'm in prison. My character, Bobby Earl, is in prison because he's accused of raping and murdering his 12-year-old white girl in the South, in Florida. So it's racially charged and it's very political. So he comes in there, and Bobby Earl convinces him that he's innocent and that he should not be in jail. He gets him out, and then he ends up coming after him. So there's a lot, when we first meet, when Sean Connery comes in the jail cell, we sit down at the table, and it's just a conversation. He's trying to read me, and I'm trying to read him. But Arnie said, just watch Sean Connery when you work with him, in the set, in the scene, and watch how small, how subtle the work is. And then come to dailies and watch it, because at that time we'd watch the dailies on a big screen in the hotel, and see how it reads. He said, just to help you. He said, not that you're doing anything wrong, but whatever you're doing, you can do it even smaller, because it'll read. And it gave me the faith to not feel like I had to push, because I'd gotten into some bad habits. I had gotten into the bad habit of on LA Law because, again, there's so many regulars. I noticed whenever we would work, what they would use in the final cut was when there was a movement. So we'd always do the conference table scene. All the lawyers around the conference table would start the show. And if there's a reaction, what I would like to do, if somebody says something, was just maybe necessary to just look at them and let the thoughts play. They wouldn't use that because you're just sitting there. They would use when you do something like that. So I realized I'd kind of picked up these bad habits of doing all kinds of unnecessary things, as opposed to just what most of us learn in acting class, just think the thoughts and it'll read. So I had to relearn that after 7 years of doing the show.
How do you approach your downtime?
Wow.
And let me actually,
Right?
I kind of am paraphrasing. Jem asked, how do you keep your skills sharp when you're not working? So, same kind of idea. Jem.
Where's Jim?
Jem's over here.
Hey, Jim. How you doing? How do you keep sharp when not work? It depends. I mean, a lot of us train and have trained, but I think the best university is just real life. And I've always loved people and observing and being a people watcher. So that's really by observing is how I can keep those skills kind of sharp. It's not in the doing necessarily. And then you find out when you haven't in a while, when you get back to it, it's kind of rusty. Like we just started shooting Dirty Sexy again 3 weeks ago, and it had been a little rusty. And it takes a while. I was talking to Peter Krause too. All of us kind of feeling it. It's just like Donald Sutherland too said, man, it takes like a few days to kind of get back into it. But I have somebody that I work with when I can, who's a coach, Susan Batson. Some of you may know her, who is amazing. And That's Susan? No, okay.
No, it was not Susan. No, but I'm Susan.
Okay, all right. Well, she's really phenomenal, and sometimes you need that third eye of somebody you really trust, that you can just try things with. So it depends. I mean, if there's a project that I'm working on, I may go to her, and I may go to her earlier than usual if I have enough time. So often we get cast just a week before they start shooting or the last second or something. But that just helps keep the skills tight. But I just try to just really observe life. And anybody who knows me knows I love family. So if I'm not working, I'm with my wife and my kids for the most part.
What?
Oh, all right.
Have you ever turned something down because you're thinking about what your kids would think of it?
I should say yes.
Or okay. All right, let's turn it around. Or done something because you think it'd be something you'd want your kids to.
Yeah. Well, yeah. One was, I say probably. Thank you. Fatherhood. Fatherhood was a cartoon on Nickelodeon, and Bill Cosby had a book out in the '80s called Fatherhood, and this was based on that book. And I had the good fortune to do the voice of the father in that. So it lasted about, I think, a season and a half. So that was specifically for them, because I'm telling you, most of what I've done, they can't see.
Now, but they're going to grow up, and they're going to,
No, it's true.
All
it's
of your
true.
all of your work is going to be available on the
That's
internet.
scary, man. That's scary.
You're just going to go click. There's
No, you're right. Then we're going to have a lot of explaining to do.
This kind of what brought that question on is Yvonne, way back in the corner over there, wants to know, how did you feel portraying Jesus in the audiobook, The Bible Experience?
Thank you.
And was the process difficult?
Wow. Yeah, it was. Frank, my brother, is a writer. He wrote a short film in 1993 called The Second Coming. And it happened right after the Watts riots. Here, the uprising or riots we had in '92 here in Los Angeles. And we were talking one day, and I was just thinking, what would happen if Jesus came back for the second coming and he was a brother? How would people respond to him? How would they react?
I think most people would say he pretty much was a brother the first time.
Well, some, yeah, not all, some. So I was intrigued by that question. So he wrote a film, and we shot that film, and I played Yeshua, Jesus, with the long locks, and most of it took place in an insane asylum with this little girl. Because I thought, people would think he was. If this guy came back and said he was Jesus, folks, number one, think he's crazy, and throw him in prison. So that's kind of what happened. So I say that to say that was 13 years before the Bible Experience that we did. The Bible Experience, for those of you who don't know, it's an audio Bible, and it's an all African American cast. I mean, from everybody that you can think: Denzel, Sam Jackson, Angela Bassett, Forrest Whitaker, anybody you can imagine. About 400 different people, entertainers, actors, clergy. And because of that experience 13 years ago, to have played Jesus and doing the homework of getting ready to portray that on camera, it made it an easier transition to just do the audio. But that said, as I said, I am a Christian. Because I'm a Christian, that was the most important project, the project I'm most proud of anything I've ever done or ever will do, because of what it means to me personally.
Especially, and certainly has gotten out to a wide audience. I mean, it's been gratifying to know that.
It's very gratifying. It became last year the fastest selling audio Bible in history, which was pretty amazing for them.
And I'm sure there's a lot of audio Bibles out there.
There's a lot of, there's a lot of them.
Niecy,
Niecy Nash had a question?
You have a question here. And
oh, Lord.
If you can say it loud enough, you can ask the question, because the problem with when we're doing it on camera is that they can't hear what you're saying, so you got to say it loud. But do you know what your question was?
I know exactly.
So if you ask it loud enough, then I don't have to repeat it, and we can go right to it.
Well, my question.
Louder.
My question is, how did you feel doing the nude scenes that you had to do for sex?
Why you want to ask me that?
No, seriously. Because as an actor, sometimes
go ahead.
before you enter into this business, you say, I'll do this, I won't do that. And sometimes you don't know till you're confronted with it. But once you did it, How was it? Did you welcome it initially, and would you do it again?
Oh, Lord. Well, I have to say, I saw the scene last night with Karen Darling that was pretty steamy. I was like, can we do this on network TV? So I don't know if they'll use it, but how was it? For Sex and the City specifically?
Well, I'm just period, because I haven't been asked to be naked yet. I don't know.
You will.
So I'm just wondering your own process with that particular thing.
To me, it's just another scene. It's just another scene. I mean, that's how I approach it. If it doesn't need to be seen on camera, the flesh, then let's not show it. I don't really have issue with that kind of stuff. You know, because if it's in line with the character. What you laughing at, man? We cracked up the other day. He said, "So what'd you do today?" He said, "You was there with a half-naked woman. It's a hard job, isn't it?"
He said
Somebody got to do it. No, if it feels gratuitous in any way, I'm not crazy about it. But I have to say this: in doing something like Sex and the City, which is probably the most explicit scenes that I've done, walking into that show, this was their 6th year, that you may be asked to go do some stuff. But yeah. But no, I don't really have an issue. I'm not going to do frontal nudity, I can tell you that. I think Sex and the City showed just about everything else, but I'm not, beyond that, I don't look to do them. I don't necessarily welcome them, but if they come my way, if it's important in some shape or form, then I don't have an issue with it, but I approach it like a whole nother scene. Just another scene. And I've been very spoiled and very fortunate because most of the actors I've worked with are just like Cynthia Nixon in Sex and the City yesterday, Natalie Z, who plays Karen. You know, it's another scene. So you do it, you set up, what are you doing? What is your objective? What are we trying to do? Especially those scenes, physically, where do we need to be? And then you play. It's a hard job. Yes, Niecy, thank you. Of all the questions you got to ask them.
Tracy Martin wants to know, did you think that your character on In Treatment was gay?
Good. Where's Tracy?
Here.
Hi, Tracy. Good question. No, because as I said, I'd only seen the first week of the Israeli version, but that was one of my questions, because not seeing the other scripts, because they wouldn't release them, I asked them, where are we going with this? Just so I know. Just so a brother knows what's going on. Let me know. Rodrigo, thank you. Rodrigo Garcia. Rodrigo Garcia, who's phenomenal. He was our executive producer and directed the first couple. He said, no, but it is a red herring, and the issue will come up and he will wrestle with trying to figure it out. So when we shot it, that's what was said early on. The whole time we shot it, my answer was no. And I remember talking to one of the directors that came in during this episode. We're talking about going out on the balcony when he breaks down. And she said something about, okay, after the part where you talk about being gay, and I said, whoa. Just so you know he's not gay, right? And she said, well, it doesn't matter. I said, no, it does matter. It kind of does matter. Just because, again, the specifics, not only the objective, but the specifics. The difference between a good performance and a great performance is specificity, the specifics. So my feeling was that he wasn't, and that's why, because we had established that, that's why the question came up, which was not in the Israeli version. I saw, after I finished filming all of my shows, I went back and looked at all of the Israeli version. It never came up. But I said, if he's not, then that question needs to be asked by the therapist. And that's where those two questions came in. Have you ever had sex with a man? He said, no. Have you ever been attracted to a man? No. Now, no matter how you play that, because it's just a question and an answer, the audience can project onto it whatever they want to project onto it. So it was interesting, though, when it was all said and done. I never saw the other episodes of the other characters. I never saw my stuff. So when it aired, I watched it for the first time. I said, this boy, he's sweet. because of what he talked about. And when it hit me was when in the episode after this, he comes back in uniform, he's going back to work, and he says he goes to a gay bar and has a drink. And he wants to beat up some of the patrons in the place. So I'm thinking, like the therapist and everybody else was thinking, well, why are you going to a gay bar? So I think, but I do think honestly, genuinely, what he said initially was the fact that I feel free around him. My father always had these expectations on me to be better, to be perfect, to be great, and to not feel those expectations. And he says, they're free. And I've never felt that. I think it starts with that. But I think he was starting to go down that path and started to wonder what that could be like. And I think that's why he did, in fact, I believe, committed suicide. It's left to the audience to believe what they want to believe. If it was an accident because the plane crashes in the next episode, or if it was, oh, I'm sorry, I thought everybody saw it. It aired 3 months ago.
That's why I didn't ask that question.
Oh, damn, I'm sorry. You know y'all on the late freight because it did air 3 months ago. But I think he couldn't come to terms with so much in his life and that sexual orientation being a part of it.
So now I guess I can ask the other question. You hadn't seen all the episodes. You didn't know what happened to him. When you took the job, you didn't know how he ended up.
No, I did know that.
You did know
Yeah,
that.
I did know that was going to happen.
All right.
Yeah.
We're gonna now, there are several questions that are all kind of on a theme, so we're gonna ask them all together. Well, not at the same time, but one after the other. But KV
Good, KV.
says, I am a young African-American actor who's been pursuing this for 1 year. I have a team, but I'm not sure how to establish my brand and effectively market myself.
Wow.
Can you offer some tips, tricks, and advice for successful career longevity?
Tips, tricks, and advice.
So he's kind of vague. Maybe you can narrow that down.
What kind of team do you have? You talking about an agent and a manager? It's funny. I used to always say, do you have any training? But the sad thing in this climate, you do stand-up, you rap, you don't necessarily have to have the training. It's a trip.
You have
do you have
a
training?
brand.
No, have you trained as an actor? You have. Well, you're already on the right path because you're thinking of it as a business. I would say to you, though, please don't ever let the business or the understanding of business overtake the desire to learn the craft and become better at your work. The great thing about what we do is that as we grow, as we live more life, we theoretically become better if we're observant of ourselves and analyze ourselves and life around us. But in terms of business, if you have good people around you, you want people who are going to work hard for you. And I'll say this, if you're signed with an agency who has a lot of clients, and if they're not paying attention to you, go somewhere else. It's not about getting with CAA or William Morris or the names that we hear all the time, unless they're working for you. But it's about getting with the person. It could be a smaller boutique agency or manager. You have a manager? Is your manager here? Today? Yeah. Okay, good. Let me ask you, why do you have a manager?
He's the one that helped me out. He's the one that helped me.
Okay. So there's loyalty. But let me just say, if you have a good agent, you may not need a manager yet because you're probably giving 10, maybe 15% to that person. And you're single? Yeah. Okay. Especially when you start having a family, and if you do have family or other loved ones or dependents, you're gonna start looking at those percentages a whole different way. But right now, you want somebody who's gonna work for you, and just do the work. Just do the work, and please just aspire to get better wherever you are. And don't let doing a commercial or a soap or whatever else stop you from working. But just have a goal somewhere. If you want to do great work, just get your feet wet. Because it's really all about doing the work and letting people know when you do the work. That's why I think Lee Wallman who's my publicist, is great because she lets people know. She gets me out there talking to the right people. Just let people know that you're out there. That's vital. Say what? Well, do you have a project right now that you're working on?
Yeah.
What is it?
It's called the movie Hotel for Dogs.
When's it coming out?
Hotel for Dogs.
When is it?
January.
January. Okay. Well, you'll assess it, when the time comes. But and they're not cheap. But you'll assess that's part of the business. She ain't cheap. None of them are cheap. But, we need to renegotiate, by the way. But yeah, so just know that is the promotion to me. That's just me talking. But the marketing and the promotion of what you do is as important as the work you do. Because otherwise, I think most of us in the room can know we can do work that we're very proud of that nobody ever sees. I can't tell you independent films I've done that sit on a shelf. So that's why I got excited about it in treatment, because I knew this is the kind of work that you want to do, and then kind of act like Gabriel Byrne, who's phenomenal, to work with him and know that HBO is going to put it out there to be seen. So it becomes, we know it's frustrating when you do work that has challenged you, but nobody sees it. The way to get people to see it is to have somebody who's going to work for you to promote it and market it and get you out there to say, hey, look at this guy's work. Does that help at all?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Okay, good. All right. All the best to you.
Is there a Blair Underwood brand?
Oh,
If
man.
you had to describe it?
You know, I never thought of that until a manager said that to me a couple of years ago. And it's tough making it in this business today because of all the things we're talking about, hopefully won't strike about, but because of new technology. It's harder to make a name now than ever before, because if you have name, you can at least leverage that and spin it in different ways where people can recognize you from something you've done. That's where the publicist comes in. But I think there is. And that's the business side. And what it is something that, because of the different projects I've done the last few years, people have said sometimes I don't know what to expect, which goes back to the element of surprise, which is what I was hoping for. But my desire has always been and continues to be, whatever it is, I hope that it's quality, that you do expect when you come to the party. You don't know if he's going to be a good guy, if he's going to be a bad guy, upscale or country or whatever, but at least you know it's going to be quality. That's been my desire, to do that. So hopefully that's part of that brand.
You've done all the right things. You went to school, you did dinner theater, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. How do you feel when you get to a set and there's maybe the latest flavor who maybe was a rapper or a singer or a comedian or whatever on the set with you, and if not sharing billing, getting a billing above you or something like that? How does that make you feel when you have to then, and probably holding up the production, we're going 2-3 extra hours because so-and-so can't hit his mark, or she can't remember her lines, or what goes through your head in that situation?
That was part of my wake up call. I had a chance to do a film miniseries for CBS. It was like the last remnants of Alex Haley's family saga from Roots. It's called Mama Flora's Family, where Cicely Tyson played Mama Flora and played my mother. And I had the chance to age from 16 to age 50. When I was 50, my daughter was played by Queen Latifah. And Queen Latifah at the time had her sitcom on TV. And when we were negotiating the contract, they said, okay, Queen Latifah it's gonna be Cicely Tyson and the billing, Queen Latifah. I said, whoa. Hold up. I said, Queen Latifah? The rapper? And they said, yeah. And, we went back and forth. And
I believe the song is, ooh, ladies first, ladies first.
Look at you! He's a brother from another mother.
You know why? Because it's all about UNITY.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, man. Wow. I don't know where to go from there. No, but we went back and forth, and that's really one of the times I just kind of stop and think and just, hearing the conversation between, the agents, managers, this, that, and the other, and that's when it becomes down to commerce and business. She sold a lot of records. She had a hit show on that had, a lot of people watching the show, and this was before, the Oscar nomination and everything else, and now she truly is one of my heroes, because as is Diddy, actually, and Russell Simmons, and people who have taken whatever they have, whatever they've been introduced to an audience, and they've built different businesses on top of that. I think it's phenomenal. And plus, she's a great person. But that was my wake-up call, and that was the time when I started looking at, how does this business really work? It really is, and this is the kind of the haze we were in, definitely in college, that if you're a great actor, you'll get the best roles. Nah, that's not how it works. So you have to, that's why when you do work, you have to let people know, look at what I'm doing here. And then hopefully, if that project that you're doing great work in either brings a lot of people to the party or makes a lot of money, then you get to the point of being offered the really challenging roles. But that was a business wake-up call to me, and lesson learned.
I'm going to slightly change this question, and it's not credited. How do you deal with when you're stereotyped? How do you break out of that?
What did it really say?
Well, it's what advice can you give a new minority actor in terms of stereotypical roles you're offered?
How do I deal with it?
How do you break out of that? How did you break out of it?
One of my first jobs in New York was One Life to Live, which I did for 3 months. And thank you. And the character's name was Bobby Blue. Bobby Blue was a street kid from the wrong side of the streets, and he was seeing this sister named Laura Carrington. If any of you remember Lionel Richie's video, Hello? Yes. The blind girl? Yes. Fine, beautiful. That's Laura Carrington. So she was a love interest, and she was dating this guy who was a doctor. So there was the doctor, beautiful Laura, and Bobby Blue, my character, who was a kid from the streets. And I just remember thinking at the time, because really, this was 1985, 86. Every single role that came down the pike for a young black male was a gangbanger or somebody in the hood. That's all I had to audition for. So what I did when I got that part, because this was that guy, what I did when I got that part was I put little things in there. And again, I was just starting, so I would ask the director, do you mind if I take this paper or I'd ask the props, can I have like a Wall Street Journal? So the script says I'm waiting in the lobby for Laura, and I would sit in the lobby with the Wall Street Journal and turn the page so you could see Wall Street Journal. So you see this brother, but it shatters people's just in the presence. The fact that it's there, it's different than what people might expect. It's like this, the Russian element of this character, Simon Elder, that is different and unique. And something else we just shot the other day that was that's different and unique. So that's how I try to break out of stereotypes and not staying in your lane, not being afraid to do interracial roles.
But it's playing within the system, though. You're playing within the system. You're not going jumping up and down and screaming. I'm not going to do this. You're taking what you're given and then working with it and almost creating something new.
No, that's a very good point, because I think that what I found it's worked best for me to work within the system, but have a consciousness enough to tweak it and change it and twist it when you can. My dad told me when I was 10 years old, I'll never forget. He said, you don't always have to scream and shout with neon lights when you want to make a change. Your presence as a young black man, I'll never forget this, is a statement in and of itself. And excellence is the best deterrent to racism. Those two things combined have really guided my life in a lot of ways. Don't make a lot of noise. Just be, and be the best you can be.
I have a very important question having to do with Sex in the City. Do you care about the New York Knicks?
Sure. Yeah. I did then. Especially Robert Lee's, the character I played, was a doctor for the New York Knicks. That's where that's coming from. Yes, very much.
You don't care about the New York Knicks. Do you pay attention?
Lakers,
Lakers,
man.
You all excited? You're
Yeah.
gonna watch on Thursday? You're gonna be out?
I won't be there, but yeah.
Okay, Blair.
You can read it. Just read it. Don't try to edit it.
Well, some of it, because some of it's been asked, and so.
Okay.
What? This person, she says, it's Roger. Roger? It's not a she. Sorry, I was looking at the handwriting, and it's my fault. It is also in red. That's the problem. What works for you besides the obvious? Besides persistence and hard work and preparation, is there something else? Roger is looking for
Roger,
pearls.
what else you need? Looking for what?
Pearls.
For pearls. What works for me?
Yeah, like everybody always says the same thing. Like, work hard, stay on the grind, be prepared.
Yeah.
I think you answered some of it already in terms of, little things like don't go in nervous. If you're nervous, act like you're not nervous. That's a perfect.
Yeah, and
you did some of that, but you've been at the game for a long time, so I think something that hit me was when you were saying how when you've been on all these auditions and, you know, you didn't get that call back, that gets you sometimes.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I'm at sometimes too. It's like starting over sometimes. Like before I was auditioning a lot, the game was, oh, I need to get auditions.
Right.
Now I'm getting a lot more auditions, but not getting those calls, you know, so it's all
Not yet.
something. So for you, when you've been at those times that you talked about, what keeps you going? And looking back, now you know a lot more than you did, you know, when you first started. Like, what's some personal, maybe spirituality is part of it for you?
That's a big part of it. Spirituality and having faith, knowing it's going to be all right. Just give you broad strokes, knowing it's going to be all right. Also, it's going to be all right because if you approach it with the knowledge that there are 1,000,001 different ways to generate income, then you'll find other options to generate income without giving up on your dream. I can't tell you how many friends I have. And this is when I say I feel like a broken record sometimes because I talk to some of my contemporaries. I have to tell you, at 43 years old, a lot of my friends at my age have thought about or have opted out of this business because it hasn't worked so far for whatever reason. And there's one in particular, a buddy of mine, who hasn't worked at least maybe in 10 years. And I'm always encouraging him, man, why don't you just write down some ideas and, you know, you can produce your own ideas. You've been in the game long, you know everybody in this town. You can pull people together. And he has the ability to do it, but I think he feels as though if he does that, he's giving up on his dream somehow. What I'm saying to you and anybody who's interested, what has worked for me personally is to multitask. Basically, that's what it comes down to. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. It really doesn't have to be. And like you said, all you could think about when you weren't getting the auditions was, I gotta get the audition, I gotta get the audition. What I'm saying is, you can still be in that zone, I gotta get the audition, but also think about what else you can do. For me personally, specifically, when I realized a couple years ago, I just wanted to tell stories. And there's a book that I read called My Soul to Keep, written by Connery. That's a phenomenal book. I read this, it's a mystery, a supernatural thriller. I read the book and could not put it down. I tried to buy the rights, long story short, couldn't buy the rights. Samuel Goldwyn outbid me. The rights lapsed a year later, and then I finally picked up the rights. She called me after the rights were about to lapse and said, do you want this book? I said, absolutely, I want the book. It's been set up at Fox Searchlight 7 years now, about 7 years. Got another book written by her called The Good House, set up as a movie. It's in development hell at Fox Searchlight for 4 years now. So what happened was I said, look, I just want to tell stories. These are great books. And then for me, the best stories to find, let me just throw this to you, the best stories to find sometimes are books or novels because the thought process to really break down the details of characters and story, it's already there for you. And there's so many great stories that you could probably get for $1. You know, sitting on a shelf somewhere, the author might give you the rights to it. So that said, I said, wait a minute, instead of finding great books and setting them up at studios that never get made into movies 7 years later, why not go straight to an author I respect, that is Connery and her husband, who's named Stephen Barnes, with an idea. Let's find an idea that we like together. A character I would like to play on film, on the big screen. You guys do books, I do film and television. Let's collaborate, create a brand, create a franchise, create something that can generate income for us, but yet challenges us creatively. So that's what I did with Connery and Stephen Barnes. The first book is a murder mystery called Casa Negra that came out last August and did very well, I'm happy to say. So the sequel is coming out September 16th. It's called In the Night of the Heat. It's all about Tennyson Hardwick, this character who was a struggling actor who's a former gigolo who's trying to redeem himself, basically. But it's action adventure, it's got love, it's got passion, it's got all those things, all those challenging things that make a great character that I would love to play. Those roles that go into Denzel and Will and whatever. That's the business, whatever. So do I sit back and get upset because Denzel and Will, who was a rapper, and just thought I'd throw that in there, are doing their thing, or do I become proactive and say I can still work as an actor, generate income, support my family, and still have that hustle on to find great stories. So I approach it as a producer. Teaming with great writers and creating this project. So you can do the same thing. That was just my path, and that's one thing. Reality TV, that's another thing. My lawyer, Daryl Miller, said to me, he read some book about the wealthiest people in the country, and he said, he realized when he read the book that the wealthiest people in the country have 7 at least 7 revenue streams. So I said, wow. I mean, you know, you don't do it just for the money, but I'd like to have a huge mansion and be able to take care of my family. So I said, well, you know, I figured, why not if you can still be creative and still challenge yourself? And that's why I said to somebody earlier on, please never lose sight, I'm saying to you, never lose sight of challenging yourself creatively. If you call yourself an actor, if you're serious about the work, don't lose that. But you can't deny the business, otherwise you may just stay out of work and be frustrated and bitter, which I do see in my circle. Does that help at all? All right.
Can I
I just want to say
quick...
something about Will,
Yeah.
who was a rapper.
Yeah. I thought he was a boxer.
He's a boxer. I have so much respect for that brother, because when I was shooting Just Cause in Florida, he was shooting the first Bad Boys in Florida. I remember we went out to dinner with Cherie, his first wife, and my wife, my fiance at the time, and he is so curious about everything, and he's an incredible businessman. And we talked mostly about the work and what he was learning as he, you know, every day he was go to the set, he's doing this big action movie, but he had come out of the Fresh Prince. So I have respect for, and really, and this is what I learned too, because I used to be an elitist to a point. Okay, they're rapping, they're singing, and whatever. But if those people, whether it's Queen Latifah or it's Will or Jamie Foxx who's doing stand-up, if they are hungry and have a love and respect for the craft, God bless them. So, I mean, Will, I'm just so proud of what he's been able to accomplish. It's phenomenal.
We just had James Avery here, and he had a lot of good things to say about Will Smith.
He's a good guy.
Let me throw out something really quickly. It's great to have the ability to control your own destiny and make films. What a lot of people are doing right now is making the films and putting them on YouTube. The danger of YouTube is that once you click, you've given away all your rights to that. So if you create a cool little video where you do a little bit and you're holding a Coke can or whatever, and that goes viral and everybody's seen that, you're never going to do a Pepsi commercial or a Mountain Dew commercial. So just a little admonition to be a little careful what you put up on YouTube. Do you remember, was it The Cosby Show where you got your first job?
Yeah, well,
your first set, your SAG card? No, your SAG card.
No, SAG card was, they still have Favor shoes? It was a Favor shoe commercial.
I remember Favor shoes. But...
It's a Favor shoe commercial, yeah. And they Taft-Hartley'd me to just, I think I was doing like modeling shoes up and down a runway. And what are the dues nowadays for SAG? It was like $60 then, 85.
I don't know what the base dues are.
What is that, 800, 900 or something?
Oh, the initiation fee?
The initiation fees for SAG.
Is 2,700? 2,800?
Ouch. It's been a long time.
However, have you ever worked on a non-union film prior to being in the Screen Actors Guild?
Have you
had a non-union experience, put it that way?
Yeah.
We'll leave it at that. Knowing what you know about non-union work,
Yeah.
given the $2,800 due initiation fee, still, is it important to be a Screen Actors Guild member?
Oh, no, absolutely, because you need that protection. Otherwise, we get dogged out with hours alone, just work hours alone, if we don't have that protection from our union. And then now, again, what we're fighting for, which is frustrating. You know, you do a show that airs on network or just on television now, but certainly the networks now, they air those shows the very next night. It used to be in the 80s, we're doing LA Law, the show would air once, and then it would rerun maybe 7 months later. And you'd get about like $3,000 for that rerun. Now it airs the next night, we get nothing. So we need, I know you're in there fighting, we need you guys fighting, we need our union to protect us, and it's a critical time. I hope we don't have to get to that point where we have to strike, but we gotta fight. We gotta fight for those rights, and we need you.
Did you know what you were becoming a part of, or was it just okay? I'll sign up there.
No. I just needed to do that to work. I had to get my SAG card.
And then, so was there a time when you turned around and you realized, oh, I get it now?
Yeah. When I started working in the industry, and then a SAG rep would come down to the set and they'd ask questions and kind of just be there to have your back, and really give you the card. Say if you need anything, let me know. and the issues would come up, and I'd call them and let them know. So how do I deal with this? You know, so it's always been a great source of protection.
Because I think there are a lot of people out there, especially young people, and I think it's the responsibility of the generation that precedes to inculcate the same kind of appreciation for what being a part of that union can do for you. And so many people, so when you're talking about, you know, what do you need to do, what are the things you can do, multitasking and everything else, it's also important to honor the people who've come before you and who fought for what the union means and what the protections you're talking about.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of people don't think that, because they think like we all do when we first get the card, well, if I want to work, I have to have this card.
That's
It's going to
it.
cost me how much?
That's it.
What they don't realize I'm sorry, I've gotten off on it.
No, but it's good, 'cause that's it's really,
All
that's
of a
how
sudden it's got
that's all how it all started, with work hours and also just safety on the set.
Yeah.
Because we're just taken for granted.
What's next?
What's next? Because of the writer's strike, Dirty Sexy Money was picked up for 13 episodes, so that'll take us all the way to Christmas. So I don't know. I'm just gonna work till Christmas with a couple weeks off. With some traveling, promote, and treatment overseas, and maybe some Dirty Sexy Money overseas.
And do you have a plan to put Othello on the stage?
No, no, not yet. Not yet. But in terms of plans, I just want to. Ultimately, I want to direct more films. Ultimately, I want to work with great actors in front of the camera, but also behind the camera, because I just really enjoyed that process a lot, of just being able to put that team together of actors who don't necessarily get that shot. And that was fun, because Tommy and I produced that together with Intrepid. But to go to the mat for some of these actors, because the money people, it's all independent, wanted a name, and to finally be in that position and say, forget a name. Maybe the name's not right for the part. This person is an incredible actor, and they deserve it. And really, in this particular story, it was about four best friends. They get into a life of crime. That life of crime happened to be houses of ill repute and prostitution, and you need kids who understand this world, and to be able to have those battles and at least once or twice win that battle and watch these actors. This guy Ben Crowley, who played the lead, watch this kid fly was amazing. So I got excited about that. So I want to do more of that.
You want to do like a Mel Gibson situation where you're the lead and the director and producing?
You know, those have been my inspirations before Mel kind of lost his mind and started tripping and drinking. But what he's been able to
Maybe
build.
I should have picked a different example.
But no, because before that, before that, he's the guy I'd always met. Him and Clint Eastwood and Kevin Costner. You know, around the time, especially with his accomplishment with Dances with Wolves. But to be able, the reason I said Mel Gibson before I started tripping was he is somebody who he would do Hamlet, do Shakespeare, the classics, and turn around and do the big action films, the Lethal Weapons. So to have that kind of range, and also direct something like Braveheart, is definitely what inspires me to get to that level, to do that.
What was your experience? What did you learn from Tyler Perry? Has created an entire industry out in Georgia. Did you shoot? Was that where you
We
shot
in
Medea?
Atlanta, yeah. This was a film called Medea's Family Reunion that came out two years ago. Thanks. Yeah, now you talk about a multitasker. That guy, yeah, I mean, he writes, produces, directs, and plays a 6'7" guy in a dress, and it's pretty amazing to watch. But see, what I learned from him is not to be afraid to work outside the system. Because he built his empire outside the system. For about 7 years, he was taking his plays on the road, making millions of dollars. And then Hollywood finally got hip, and they didn't give him the money. They negotiated with him, because he owned most of that movie, the first movie, Diary of a Mad Black Woman, and made a fortune. And now he's just got a movie, at least one coming out every year for the last 4 or 5 years, and making incredible money. So I get inspired, not just making the money, I'm not going to talk about that, but just the fact that he did his thing outside of the system. And again, that's the thing going back to that broken record, I say often with actors when we're struggling for someone to give us a job, is don't be afraid to buck the system. Don't be afraid to get that camera. Be careful not to put it on YouTube, but get that camera, because you can go to Best Buy, get a cheap camera now that's high quality, and put it on film, and then there are ways to transfer it, make it look like film or not. You know, I just want to say this too, just with films, with actors, it goes back to picking great actors. This is something when I was trying to direct a film a couple years ago that didn't work, but Keenan Ivory Wayans, who had directed a number of films, who has directed a number of films, said to me, I said, I just need some advice. He said, look, tell the story. Don't worry about the technicalities of things, tell the story. Because if you have great performances in a film that looks like crap, you got a great film. You got a film that looks beautiful with bad performances, you got a terrible film.
Yep.
So it doesn't matter necessarily what the camera is, just get great actors, tell a great story, and let the actors play.
So we can look forward to the Blair Underwood Film Ranch in Tacoma, Washington.
I don't know about that.
What do you tell your children about the business?
Don't do it.
Yeah.
No, I can't do that. I would never tell them not to do it or discourage them. My daughter, who's 9, wants to be an actor. My boys, 11 and 7, could care less. But that's her thing. She's in every school play, and she's fascinated by it. She has the same bug that I had. What I tell her is do as much stage as possible. I used to tell her what I used to say to everybody else. Well, now everyone wants to rap and do stand-up before just to get that in. But I tell her, fall in love with the stage, and she is in love with it now. Keep doing that, and play these different characters, and create these different worlds, and take those journeys. And then when it's time to do the business, then God willing, I'll be here for you. But it's tough. I mean, we know how it's not an easy business. And when I see that passion in her eyes, I know the downfalls. I know how difficult it can be. Of course, we all want to protect our kids. But also honestly, this business has been very good to me. And she lives a very comfortable life. So it's hard for her to say, well, it worked for you. What's the problem?
Did you have a choice? Could you have gone and been a whatever, an accountant, a lawyer,
I think you always, God, I would have hated that. I would not be good at a 9 to 5 at a desk. But I think you always have the choice. That's something I heard Denzel Washington say early on in an interview. I don't really know him at all, but in an interview with respect to taking different roles. And he said, you always have the option to say no. I never forgot that. Even when you're broke, you have the option to say no. If what you want to do is become a great actor, if that is the goal, and be respected as that, you have the option to say no, not to do certain things. But that goes back to that sense of self, of just not being afraid to say, they offer me this much money, I gotta pay my car note, I gotta pay my rent, but it's not right for me. And not being afraid to do that. I always have the option to say no.
I think this is probably going to be our last question.
All
Can
right.
anybody learn to act? Can you teach
Can
anybody
anybody
to
learn to act? I've gone back and forth with that question. I often say, yeah, if you just observe life. And there are Sean Penn comes to mind, some of our greatest actors have never had a class, never been trained formally. But I don't know. I mean, when I was auditioning some of the actors, I was like, well, try this and try that. And man, it was like pulling teeth. I never quite got there. So I don't know if you can teach anybody to act. But it really isn't rocket science. It's just really being open to life, and then just regurgitating it.
And last question B, as a director, when you're not getting what you want and what you need, how do you approach that?
Oh, just had a thought. It kind of depends on what it is, and it's hard because again, in film and television, you're dealing with somebody's money, you're dealing with the sun. So oftentimes you're losing light, that whole thing. Again, if you choose the right actor, you'll avoid some of those things. But it varies. I mean, sometimes you can kind of, if it's a smart actor, and I think the best actors are smart actors, you can talk to them as the character and get them to a certain place. Of course, you never want to give them a line reading. I think that's one of the biggest insults you can do to an actor. Don't give me a line reading, just tell me what you need, and we'll get you there. So that's what I always try to do. Now, unfortunately, there was one situation where I was trying that, and actually the actor said to me, he said, I'm trying everything, and I don't know how to give you what you want. So just tell me how you want to hear it. Mm-hmm. So then he gave me carte blanche. Okay, man, just do it. But it's hard because you never want to do that because I have too much respect for their talent to do that, to tell them how to do their job.
Blair Underwood,